Today is June 6th, 2023. 79 years ago this morning, in the early morning misty hours off the coast of Normandy, France, a little-known operation called Operation Overlord started. The operation had one singular mission: to liberate Europe from Nazi Germany, to accept the unconditional surrender of Hitler's forces. That was the ultimate goal of that morning and what unfolded over those many hours. And then, of course, for days plus all the way through June, all the way up until the end of June, this invasion of Normandy happened. The operation delivered 5 naval assault divisions to the beaches of Normandy, France, and it became the largest amphibious assault in world history. It's unbelievable to see these pictures now and to think what was happening on that misty, stormy morning when air cover wasn't even available in the way that they had planned. So all of these men storming these beaches without the air support that they thought they would have, as they took on all of these Nazi pillboxes, raining hellfire down on them. It was the largest amphibious assault in world history. You might know it by its other name, D-Day. So on this day, it is worth honoring these men. In the first 24 hours, 9,000 Allied soldiers were killed by Nazis. Between the Allies and Germany, we saw more than 550,000 casualties during the invasion of Normandy. I mean, it helped turn the tide of the war, of course. The massive Soviet victories in the north pushed the Nazis out of Stalingrad and ultimately out of Russia altogether. These combined forces and combined victories defeated Nazi Germany. It's worth thinking about this, though, like on a night like this, isn't it? This is, 79 years ago today. Imagine what those men were dealing with on the beaches of Normandy 79 years ago. The people that gave their lives, the people who lost limbs. Now we have... We're in this era now where NATO is actively supporting the very evil that we defeated 80 years ago. Unbelievable. And if you think about it, there's nothing more dangerous than someone who is losing power, right? We talk about this a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
The idea that, what is it, like if you're losing power, that's when a person lashes out.
Yeah.
Right? When you're taking a person's power. And we are watching the last desperate throes of Zelensky's regime trying to hold on to power. You be the judge. If this is what happened after what happened overnight. Overnight, Ukraine and NATO forces partially destroyed a hydroelectric dam. They might as well have destroyed the whole thing because at this point it doesn't matter. This hydroelectric dam in the Kherson region. This is what happens when you destroy a dam. Just look at that. Thousands of innocent people die in their towns. Just look. This is unbelievable drone footage of what happened.
It really is. It's shocking.
I can't imagine.
No.
Well, I think people underestimate the power of water. There's nothing that is going to stop that water. No man-made structure will stop that water, other than the one that was there. But you know what I mean, like the houses. They're
all floating down the.
Gone. It's powerful,
and they're all floating away now, right? So they partially destroyed this dam and just destroyed this whole area. Here is some more daylight footage, as you can see here, of a wall of water flooding the city center. Now it's completely flooded after NATO and Ukraine partially destroyed this hydroelectric dam. And according to the regional governor, hundreds of civilians were in this town before NATO and Ukrainian forces flooded the town. And so we know that was the case. And that's, hundreds of them. Look at this damage this morning. Look at these roads are now rivers. Look at this, houses just floating down the streams, floating down the river.
That's just post-apocalyptic.
It's unbelievable. Now, I lived in West Virginia during 200-year floods back-to-back in Bluefield, West Virginia, when I was there as a young reporter. And you just saw these entire communities devastated because of this. And this is like 10 times worse than what I saw in West Virginia. Like what we're looking at here and the size of that river overflowing. So when you look at these drone footage, the water flows downstream of the Dnieper River, and just absolutely destroying this entire area. Horrible, horrible. And again, the governor is saying, we can't even enter this town in the Belgorod region, saying we can't even enter this territory because of the nonstop shelling. This is other areas that are just under nonstop shelling in civilian areas. Patrick Lancaster in this area today in Belgorod region. like dealing with a nonstop shelling in this area. So this continued attack on civilians here is, just to give you a sense of where this flooding is tracking here, I've drawn in these blue areas here near the dam so you can see these areas that are just totally underwater that have just gotten flooded according to local reports. Here's a map. Now just take a look at this map and you can see here where this area in question. So this is the area in question here, right near here in the center of your screen near this dam. And then as you can see all of this area here underwater, all of that city center underwater. But then look as we pan up further here on the screen, where does it go? Upriver a little bit here. And just further north is the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant and the town of Zaporozhye. So right here, this water, of course, is incredibly important to cool the nuclear power plant. And the cool water from that area is being used in that. So look how close, and of course the continued shelling of the Zaporozhye power plant has continued. Remember, and just think about what you're looking at on your screen here, guys, is a Russian city. Right? This is a Russian city. Ukraine is claiming that Russia blew up the bridge, blew up the dam. Even the head of NATO had the balls to tweet this out today. Look at this, guys. This is Jens Stoltenberg, the head of NATO. The destruction of the dam today puts thousands of civilians at risk and causes severe environmental damage. This is an outrageous act, he writes, which demonstrates once again the brutality of Russia's war in Ukraine. So, and also Olaf Scholz of Germany also came out and accused Russia of blowing up their own dam. This is the same Olaf Scholz who was shouted down as a warmonger this weekend. Even had people taking the speech and cutting it into clips with him and Hitler back and forth. And people were shouting, "You're a warmonger, you're a warmonger." And he was trying to speak louder than them because he was basically sounding like Hitler. But wait a second. I seem to remember NATO and Ukraine testing out the idea of blowing up this dam last year. It was even featured in the Washington Post. The idea was to stop Russia from advancing. So this was in the Washington Post, where they specifically highlighted Ukraine using HIMARS launchers to attack this dam. You cannot make this up. Kovalchuk considered flooding the river. The Ukrainians, he said, even conducted a test strike with HIMARS launchers on one of the floodgates of the dam, making 3 holes in the metal to see if the river could be raised enough to stymie Russian crossings but not flood nearby villages. The test was a success, Kovalchuk said, but the step remained a last resort. So we're not going to do it just yet. Washington Post has a feature article about how Ukraine was planning on blowing up this dam to slow a Russian advance. It's amazing how this all comes together, doesn't it? I think almost like hoping we forget that this was in the Washington Post. So they already told us they were going to do this. Just like when they told us they'd blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. And then they did it. And then they tried to blame Russia, even though Joe Biden told us he was going to. Victoria Nuland told us that they were going to. So in addition to blowing up the dam, just up the river, of course, is that other target, which is the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. I mean, again, this river is vital to the cooling of the nuclear power plant. It's been under constant shelling by NATO forces for the past year. We found HIMARS shells being used to attack the nuclear power plant, which has been under control of Russia since March of last year. And they've been using HIMARS to attack all over this area. But don't worry, the Atomic Energy Agency says, hey, the IAEA says nothing to worry about here. It's all fine. We've got it under control. Listen.
Today, the Nova Kakhovka dam was severely damaged, leading to significant reduction in the level of the reservoir used to supply cooling water to the ZNPP. The cooling water is required for the essential cooling systems which provide cooling to the among other to the following: residual heat removal from the reactors, spent or partially spent fuel there, residual heat removal from the spent fuel ponds, cooling of the emergency diesel generators when they are running. Absence of cooling water in the essential water systems for an extended period of time would cause fuel melt and inoperability of the emergency diesel generators. However, our current assessment is that there is no immediate risk to the safety of the plant. Okay. We are following this by the
day. We're following this by the day. Great. So just like when they
went to Zaporizhia last fall,
right,
and said, we can't say who's doing this, but we can say we don't want it to happen anymore.
Right. We can clearly see the azimuth of these rockets and which direction they're coming from, and they're coming from the west. They're coming from Ukraine, and they're using American HIMARS to attack the power plant. But we can't say who's actually attacking the plant. We can't. We just can't come out and say it. Yeah. So
who do you think did it? I mean, that's
so Encyclopedia Brown. Who do you think stole the lunch money from little Wendy? Like, who did it?
I mean, one side has images that they show on the internet. Right. With like tracking numbers and serial numbers and things like that. But I guess that's not really a clue. They shouldn't ask to see that because it's a hanging chat or what have you.
This afternoon, Ukrainians were posting videos of themselves saving dogs in the river. Like, they're like, Ukraine's like, yeah, because Russia blew up the dam. And literally there's like a police chief that's like filming himself or filming his buddy, this police officer, pulling a dog out of the river and saving the dog's life. It's like, great. That's great. Thanks for your hard work. After you blew up the dam, now you're trying to save face with propaganda on the internet. Go ahead, David.
Yep. Well, I was just going to say, if you read Twitter, you'll see that propaganda works because people are blaming Russia. And like you said, they're saying, while Russia's blowing stuff up, Ukrainians are saving dogs. Exactly the same thing I was just going to say that I saw. Yeah. It's just like unbelievable how much propaganda works online.
Yeah, see these Ukrainians, they're saving dogs after they blew up the dam.
Well, the same thing happened just a few weeks ago at that hospital in Dnipro, which was hit by when a Ukrainian anti-rocket missile hit another missile and it fell onto a hospital. Zelensky got out in front of that story, said that it was Russia, even though it was Ukraine that knocked it down into their own civilian areas, because we know that they are not cautious around civilian areas. And the comments were completely, just absolutely sycophantic on Zelensky's Twitter page. Like, you're so brave for saying this. So glad you're saying this. Russia's the devil. All of that kind of just believe it and fall in line.
Yeah. And then if you question it, you get shut down. Like our friend who then covered it got his channel shut down for actually telling the truth about it. So you can't even talk about it because they'll block you for it. But hey, don't worry, because on this D-Day, this 79 years after D-Day, the United States is standing for democracy and will continue to send money to the bastion of democracy, which is Ukraine. And what we find is that American members of Congress are really read up on this war. You would be surprised, actually. I was stunned to see this. You might not know this, but American members of Congress, they read more books than Natalie and I do. We read a lot of books. They are so read up on the Ukraine war. They know every little nuance of what's happening. They understand the history since 2014 of Crimea and the Donbass and how it's been hell for the people living in that part of the country and why they voted to become part of Russia. These members of Congress understand all of it. It's unbelievable. Here, the gray zone caught up with this is Congressman Jamal Bowman, who from New York. So you think New York, very cosmopolitan state, right? Clearly, they're going to know. So he was on the streets of D.C. when the gray zone caught up with him and to ask him about the nuances of this war and why we're sending so much money to this regime. And here's what he had to say. It's unbelievable how well read he is on this.
What do you want us to discuss?
The Donbass and Crimea.
I don't know if I know much about that. I need to get into the details and learn some more about that. Yeah.
You know what those are?
No. Tell me. Educate me.
Well, let me ask you this. What's your opinion on the war for Ukraine? Do you support U.S. aid to the war in Ukraine?
Yes.
Why do you support that?
Because Putin's a madman, and we got to stop him. But I'm anti-war in general.
Okay. All right. But so just so you know, the Donbass and Crimea, those are the central regions in Ukraine, which were in dispute and which started the war over those regions.
Okay.
So
Okay, good to meet you.
If you say so.
Cool.
Good to meet you. Donbass, Crimea, I don't know too much about that. I have to read up on that. I don't know what that is. I don't know what those are. I've never heard of that before.
I mean,
Putin's
so
a madman.
why did Russia go in there then? Why are they there?
He doesn't need to answer your questions. He's a member of Congress. He's a member of Congress who then provides the purse strings for the defense contractors to make billions of dollars. He doesn't need to know the nuances of this. He doesn't need to know why the people of this region have been facing a genocide since 2014, and this is what this was all about. I mean,
Crimea, like that at least was in the news. The Donbass, the Western media goes out of their way to ignore. But right. Crimea at least was a fun talking point for Obama for a long while to stir up anti-Russia hate.
There's a reason people like him get tons of funding to get into office.
Oh my God.
That's the kind of people they want in there.
It made me want to cry because I think about, these journalists that spend time in this region. They know that the Western world is ignoring the abuse that they have been experiencing for nearly a decade. And even when journalists come there, there's one in particular who said that when we go there and we say we want to show the Western world what's happening to you, people in those regions kind of shrug their shoulders and say, no one cares. No one's going to listen. Everyone's just going to hear what Ukraine is saying to the West. Yeah. And this is why this just shows that, ignorance works. It works, and it's incredibly expensive.
I want to watch that soundbite again. This is an unbelievable. I've watched it like 5 times today. I cannot believe that this is a member of Congress who the House of Representatives controls the purse strings.
It made me want to cry to see it because you think about, wait, people are dying and you are this flippant about it?
Right. Putin's a madman, you say.
And that's what I was going to say. The Putin is a madman is the same tactic as calling somebody a racist in an argument. Like I don't have to, if I what's the word you're always using? But
justify,
if it's so reductive that I'm just like, well, I don't have to have this conversation with you. Like we don't need to know why because Putin's a madman. That's it.
Putin's a madman. You don't need to question it. You don't need to question it. How about explain how Putin is a madman? Can you explain it in detail with evidence? Well, I'd love to hear it. Please explain. But here it is again. I just want to watch this again. It's so unbelievable. Jamal Bowman.
What do you want us to discuss?
The Donbass and Crimea.
I don't know if I know much about that. I need to get into the details and learn some more about that. Yeah.
You know what those are?
No. Tell me. Educate me.
Well, let me ask you this. What's your opinion on the war for Ukraine? Do you support U.S. aid to the war in Ukraine?
Yes.
Why do you support that?
Because Putin's a madman, and we got to stop him. But I'm anti-war in general.
Okay. All right. But so just so you know, the Donbass and Crimea, those are the central regions in Ukraine, which were in dispute and which started the war over those regions.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you. Yeah. Thanks, Grayson, for some great, unbelievable. Good to meet you. I don't have any ideas.
Did you see the follow-up video that was the second one in that thread that was posted? He caught him on the way out too, and kept it going.
Yeah.
He keeps asking him. He's like, I've been waiting for you.
I didn't.
And he's like, call my office. Just call my office, and we'll work together on it. We'll work together. We'll fix this together.
We'll stop Putin together.
Yeah.
The Western narrative right now is that Russia blew up its own dam. They blew up their own bridge, the Kerch Bridge to Crimea. They blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Putin's really a madman because he keeps really blowing up his own stuff. Own equipment. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.